what's your advice to people that have got a critical inner voice?
Do you know what? In my years of sort of doing therapy with people, I've come across so many people who are highly self-critical, painfully so, and yet hold on to it for dear life because they think that that's their source of drive and motivation and productivity and achievement. And so they'll defend it like it's doing something for them. And until they learn that actually it's probably doing damage or it's holding them back. And because often they'll come with some other problem and won't necessarily recognize that it's being perpetuated by that tendency to not only be self-critical, but just, psychologically hammering yourself into the ground when things go wrong or when you're not perfect and that sort of thing. But I always like talking to people about the idea of, okay, we all want to do well in life, right? We want to, be at our best. But if you take that idea and you take, I don't know, elite athletes, there is no elite athlete out there that chooses not to have a coach or support around them to do their best, right? They recognize that that's helpful, but they also don't choose their high school bully to come and coach them and come along to competitions with them, or they'll choose someone that they trust, someone that is honest with them, but delivers that honesty with respect, and someone who genuinely wants them to be at their best and achieve. And so if you take that idea of a sports coach and everything that they have to embody to be decent at that job, to get the most out of someone, why wouldn't you want to also do that for yourself in your own head? The differences between, that kind of high school bully sound, or, the, abusive parent, or whoever that voice is in your mind, that is never going to get the kind of outcome that you would get from, a really good coach or someone who genuinely wants the best for you.
It's a great realization. It's a really lovely realization. I would certainly put myself into the category of person who believed that his castigating inner voice was encouraging his performance for a long time. Kind of got myself to, at least now, realizing it's probably not helping. It's certainly not making me better. But then there's an even more sort of difficult question, which is, okay, it's not even useful. ... And it's still there. Like, right, okay, so it's no longer performing the function that I thought it was, but you've got this, lifetime of habit of that just being the default that you go to. I remember I used to do this thing when, again, CrossFit world. It's interesting that I use CrossFit a lot of the time when I'm talking about kind of like the induction to personal growth, because both those things happened at the same time.
Okay.
So I kind of anchor a lot of the things that I was doing then to the training modality that I did. And if I was doing a workout on an assault bike, my heart rate was really, really high. It's 170 or whatever. I've got the taste of metal in the back of my throat. I'm aware 170 is not that high for some people, but it was high for me. Working away on the assault bike, and these sort of, during that extreme stress, like acute stress, this sort of weird texture would appear, this sort of landscape or whatever in my mind. And it was always critical voices. It was always, and I have had it a couple of other times when I'm under periods of extreme stress, the less gracious parts of my inner monologue come up. And yeah, I wonder, it's certainly got infinitely better, but there's still work to be done.
Did it help you at the time?
To perform? Yeah, I think so. I mean, look, in my experience, most high performers are not driven by a perfectly balanced desire to enact their logos and actualize themselves. They are looking for validation from the world. They are looking for acceptance in a way that they never got it as a child. They're looking to prove the chip on their shoulder or the bully's wrong or whatever it might be. A lot of people are driven by running away from something they fear, not running towards something that they want. And it allows people to create very, very impressive lives, but in the only way that everybody else can judge it, which is outwardly.
Yeah.
And, I know that this is one of your pet obsessions too, which is the price that successful people pay to be the person that you admire? Like, it's probably been the most interesting question that I've considered over the last few years. And you speak to a lot of people that are very successful, and you look at the price that they pay and you go, I don't know if this is worth it. Like, you have this cathedral of accolades and success and reputation and other people admiring you and so on. But look at what you've had to do to get there. And again, there are no solutions, only trade-offs. I'm currently sort of really, really trying to work about, what would this be like if it was more fun? What would this be like if I sacrificed maybe even, 2% or 5% of the gripping and the cloying and the sort of like control in the real world to maybe unlock 50% more enjoyment internally. And I don't even know if that's a trade that needs to be made. It might be a sort of a false equivalence or whatever. But I've made a ton of progress. So for the people who've got an endemic critical inner voice, I think certainly there is at least a little bit that can be done to deprogram that. How much, whether you can get to the stage where it's, the perfect high school coach that you never had, I'm not sure. But yeah, I'm moving in the right direction.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people get the impression that if you're not sort of verbally hammering yourself, that the alternative is some kind of airy-fairy, you're lovely as you are, and that kind of thing that you can't believe in, and just feels ick. And there's a lot in between, isn't there? So, when I talked about the kind of fear chapter and that sort of inner voice that I needed when I was going through all my health stuff in the summer, I needed a hard voice. We are not victims here. We are being strong here. We are doing this, and it was very sort of powerful. It needed to be a powerful approach. It needed that. I think what wasn't there was the contempt, was the digging at yourself. So I think what stops a lot of people from trying to kind of challenge how they speak to themselves is that they think the airy-fairy stuff is self-indulgence is the only alternative. And it's not. Actually, self-compassion has to be honest all the time. And if you're not living in line with your own values, or you're not making yourself proud, you have to be honest with yourself about that, but in a way that's also respectful, and that doesn't make you recoil in shame and then unable to learn from it. So there's this kind of whole spectrum and variability and choice about what that tone is like.
I think as well, it's very much a horses for courses thing, that maybe at the beginning of your journey, if you are 450 pounds, you're kind of getting towards the stage where you just need to use whatever you can. And if shame is the most salient sort of tool that can get you from there down to a more healthy body weight, or pick whatever it is. If you're on the verge of a drug addiction or whatever, like, you just get whatever fuel you can grab a hold of most easily. But after a while, you have to think, right, okay, I've got myself into some degree of momentum here. Is the tool that got me here the one that's going to get me there? And is this really, like, have I worked this hard to achieve all of these things to still call myself a piece of shit if I fall short? It's like, really? That's what you're doing. That's the fuel that you're relying on. Like a guy with a hammer. You go, okay, there's only one use that I have for this. I only have one mode of inner monologue. I'm never going to be gentle with myself. I'm never going to be caring. I'm never going to be reassuring. I'm never going to be supportive. It's like, no. I'm just going to whip myself into submission. And it's always, that's it.
And those sorts of responses are often going to increase the urges to escape and avoid, which aren't going to lead to success anyway. So, even if you feel like shame or fear or something like that has worked to get you set on a better path, it's not sustainable, because it's more likely to lead to the need to use those escape methods and later on. So it's recognizing that even if it's been useful, it's really helpful to find other resources as well.
Is this similar to the approach that you have for dealing with self-doubt?
Yeah, I think with self-doubt, a lot of the stuff online is a sort of like, just don't do it. Just believe in yourself. And again, honesty has to be part of that. So with self-doubt, sometimes it's useful to listen to it because some of it's valid and warranted. So if you're, really doubting your ability to perform, I don't know, in an exam, because you haven't studied, then you want to listen to that self-doubt, but in a constructive way. So it's like, why am I feeling this? Okay, I haven't studied. Let's book in a load of study time and let's make it happen. So there are certain, you don't want this sort of like, happy clappy, I'm never going to be honest with myself, I'm just going to be happy with myself all the time. It's okay to feel these things. All of those emotions that we can feel, including the negative ones, they are information, and we get to choose what we do with that. You have to choose to listen to it first off. And when you're listening to it, you kind of have to ask yourself, is this warranted? And is it a fair reflection of reality? And is it in proportion to reality as well? So, some people will have self-doubt because that's a really useful, natural thing to do, and it reflects a need in the situation. And other people will just chronically doubt themselves all the time. And sometimes that's more of a pattern that's developed that doesn't always reflect reality. It's a learning experience that has happened possibly earlier on in life.